Hi, this is the introduction to the introduction, and now this is the introduction. In this video, I'm going to talk about multiband dynamics, equalizers, compression, the general, in my opinion, best way to use them. If you're just going to use basic, bare bones stuff, and you're going to stay away from, the $10,000 of software you can invest in, then it's more than achievable to get a great mix and a great master with the very basics, So in this video, I will attempt to, in my opinion, improve the audio mixing of the Apex Legends game. There's only a few things that I am not too fond of in the game, and that would be the footsteps are too quiet often. They're much too quiet sometimes. They end up kind of getting drowned out by the other frequencies that are kind of fighting with it in the ambiance. We're going to go over some of my theories for why this is, or my theory for why this is, from my knowledge of how standing waves and waves in general work. And lastly, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment if you have an opinion on something that I could be doing better. Follow me on Twitch and subscribe, because I would really like to hear more from anybody who enjoys the content that I like to make and the things that I am interested in. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so the only thing more confusing than rerouting audio signals between multiple outdated external sound cards properly is recording multiple sound sources on multiple platforms using multiple monitoring devices. For this routing setup to play back all default audio outputs of your computer through your DAW in real time, effectively making it a digital I/O, you're going to require a few things. If you're wanting to replicate and follow along, you'll require the necessary audio components and hardware. If you're simply watching to learn more about the subject of sound design, then kick back, relax, and pay attention. For my audio hardware configuration, while recording the live stream, I was forced to use a second interface, or I/O, that had a functioning stereo headphone output, because the jack on my main out is broken. This was easy. To do this, I took the left and right main outputs of my main interface and patched them into the inputs of 1 and 2 of my secondary I/O. Making sure that my gain was at 0 for the preamp line of my secondary input, this ensured that any audio being played was not gain boosted and that my volume was controlled by the main interface. Then I just plugged my headphones into my second interface. This isn't a very good routing situation unless you're using compatible hardware, but sometimes the struggle is real and you're not ready for things to get more real. So use what you have, and if it works, sweat the details later. Now, there are pros and cons to this configuration. The main benefit to using 2 interfaces instead of 1 is now you have a lot of more compatibility when using ASIO playback, because ASIO seems to dedicate itself to a single functionality and can become very limited in some cases. In my case, Ableton is not able to communicate with other streaming softwares when set to ASIO. In order to subvert this, I will make my sound device in Ableton my interface as ASIO, and then take the main outputs of my main interface and run them into my secondary interface using the stereo inputs. Then make my audio capture device in my streaming software capture my secondary I/O inputs, and voila! I can now stream audio directly from my DAW to OBS, or virtually anywhere else, with little to no latency depending on my hardware's bandwidth. This is miles more efficient than using a digital virtual I/O such as Voicemeeter. The downside to this is not only can it get tedious to manage your levels and operating system's default routing, but it can also cause severe latency depending on whether or not you're using a high-speed data transfer cable. For data transfer speeds, I'm going from my computer's PCIe FireWire, then connecting my interface to my computer. Then using 2 1/4-inch patch cords, I send audio from my main I/O to my secondary one, which processes audio digitally using a USB 2.0 cable. You can see that even though my bandwidth starts at the incredible speeds delivered by PCIe, my latency will be bottlenecked by the USB 2.0 until the end of time. What does this mean? Capital L latency. So, in conclusion, if you decide you want to hear audio in real time digitally through multiple interfaces, make sure it's using ports faster than USB 2.0, as the signal is only as fast as its slowest connection. Alternatively, if you are using a slightly more professional interface, such as my outdated and now unsupported Sapphire Pro 24 DSP FireWire, you may have channels dedicated to internal looping. Looping channels are self-explanatory. They take the input signal and resend it as an output. With this routed to take a signal, such as the main desktop output, I can then reprocess it as an input in my DAW, and then resend it as its own standard output, bypassing the limitations of ASIO. You can sort of think of this as a mini interface within the interface. With this configuration on FireWire 600, I'm able to listen to and record sounds from my DAW anywhere in real time with a barely noticeable theoretical latency of around 15 milliseconds. Using this knowledge, we're able to now use our DAW in ASIO format, record, and send our DAW signal in any way seen fit. Basically, when you are going to be using a DAW, so this would be a DAW here, and this is Ableton Live, but it could be, you know, Reaper, Fruity Loops. Audacity is not a DAW. It's a audio editor, an audio editing software. So it's I don't know the exact difference. Basically, it's not for making music. You can make music in it, but it's not. It doesn't have the features like a fucking I don't know, like a metronome, quantizing. It's just like there's just so much in a digital audio workstation for audio in general. You know, you could make a living off of mastering these kind of things. Well, fuck, it depends. I've noticed a lot of them are getting into teaching these specific programs they're getting into. Anyway, I'm just kind of rambling. So yeah, basically this whole concept started off when I was playing Apex Legends. I don't know how familiar y'all cats are with Apex Legends, but it's a battle royale game. And to give you an idea, I'm just gonna load up the practice area in the game. Okay, so basically the issue I had with this game for audio, and not just me, there's been a lot of complaints about it. Excuse me. It's just not being able to hear anything. Like, not being able to hear enemies as they sneak up behind you or whatever. So, you know, there are a lot of reasons for this. You know, mainly because I think personally, this is just my theory, is that there is a lot of ambience going on in the background. I'll show you. We can boost specifically the ambience and you'll be able to hear. So we'll just get rid of that.
right? So there's a lot going on there. And that's not really even, all of those sounds aren't really in the same frequency as the footsteps, right? It's like the only sounds that the footsteps are going to be making in this frequency are like those really like thuddy, low, like clunky. You can hear it. It's like a chunky. It's thick, right? So when somebody's sneaking up behind you in this game, and they're on the outside, it's gonna have like it's gonna basically have like a filter on it. That would be a low pass filter. Where's an auto filter, right? So, you know, just regular sound, but it'll sound more like this, right? And then the closer they get, the more that gets like turned towards until it's like the full range of sound when they're right next to you. So with the combination of you know, the ambience and then the low pass filter, it's really hard to tell the noise in there, right? It's just a lot of mud. So that's one theory I have for why that does that. Why it just straight up cancels it out. Sometimes, I don't know, like I have watched a video or two on the noise cancellation of it. To be more specific, there was like literally you can't hear their footsteps, right? So my other theory is that sometimes because this game, its sound is designed in stereo 5.1, I think. So surround stereo 5.1, which in fact isn't just a stereo signal. It's 5 separate audio signals, or audio channels, and they are each, you know, pumping those. But some, I think, and this is just a theory. I could be wrong. Oof, that's really loud. That sometimes the stereo signals will only play certain. What the hell is that sound? Why is it doing that? I don't know. That's weird. Is it gonna do that again? Yeah, so that's kind of my theory is why it would do that, is that the stereo, the 5.1 surround is just not playing a specific track at the right time, and it's just kind of like a confusing mess. The reason it cancels it out when you have the you know, mess of like that, when you have the kind of mesh of sounds with a low pass filter and then ambience, it's basically when you have a speaker and it's pushing, it can only push one frequency at a time, you know, contrary to okay, so a speaker is going to be pushing forwards and backwards to move air to create the illusion of sound being there. Well, it's not an illusion, the sound is actually there, but it's, you know, it's emulating it for the most part. So when you have two sound signals in the same frequency but in phase being I'm just kind of like winging this. Okay, so you have one sound wave, right? I'm not an artist. And then you have another sound wave, right? So normally sound waves are kind of just jumbled a little bit to give you the whole of it, like of a standard sound. But if the sounds end up doing this, then what's going to happen actually when it comes to speakers, probably in real life, I don't know, I actually haven't tested or looked into it, but with speakers it'll completely cancel out the sound if it's an exact replica. That's how you get those a cappella tracks. But for this, I think it's just subtle enough to actually just make the footsteps like almost unnoticeable when you're not paying really, really, really close attention, right? And so we want the opposite effect of that. Okay, so this is just everything. This is all the sounds that are happening, and this here is a visual representation of the sounds like that, right? And so this line here is is just basically volume. Focus up. Okay. So yeah, this is basically the gist of what I'm going to do here. Is listen for the sounds, and you can even see it on the visual representation. If you just, that's not a good one. If you're mastering, you would dip that sound because it's such a fucking harsh fighting. But this isn't music. So yeah, an easier way to do it if you're just rushing it is you can just look. So again, we're listening for the footsteps, but we're looking for the footsteps too on this visual chart right here, on this chart here, on your equalizer, right? And so you'll see the peaks. What the fuck? That scared me a little bit. So you'll see the peaks. Peaks are just these little gray things that are just rising up, and then they're dropping, they're falling down again. And so you just want to boost in that area, right? So, and this is really, really quick. This is just,
the next thing we're going to do is to balance it out even more. Like already you can hear it on the difference. So it's not really dramatic when you're actually understanding what now what we're really going to do is so use our eyes to get like a basic general idea of where the imagination is. It's not just right, but it's not good. But now it's close.
okay. So it's subtle, right? It's not a dramatic difference, but it's a difference. So, yeah. That's that with it off. And that's with it on. Alright. Now for step 2. I'm just going to save this. Live set. Apex. Sound. Mixing. Tables and projects. This guy, I don't like to lose process progress if I don't have to. Okay, now step 2. Exact same thing, but the opposite. Because we don't want the sounds fighting with each other. So, doop. Take another guy. And then, based on your equalizer, and you are going to want to go for a multi-band EQ, which is what this is. The more options you have, the better. What you have is your Q here, which is basically the spread of volume as you raise and lower the gain. It's how, like, wide it's going to spread throughout the, I think it's a multi-band EQ. Multi-bands, and maybe, I don't know, man. I don't know, because, like, I've seen some pretty cool EQs, where they have, like, different types of, like, curves, and different, like, level curves, and they compress and sidechain into the other curves. It's pretty neat stuff. But yeah, we have our, I think these are called bells. Anyway, These guys here, notch. That's what it is, notch. That's the symbol for notch, and that's going to raise or lower a specific bump in your guy. And based on your Q, boom, boom, and then raise your Q, it's boom, boom. It's like nothing, right? So again, we're gonna probably want to stick around this kind of general amount of Q, because we're just going to be ducking the frequencies that are going to be fighting with the boosted frequencies. I'm sure there's a way to do that mathematically by the books, but I'm more of like a go by ear person. I find it to be more effective and efficient, but I'm not the best guy. There's probably better guys. See, now you'll start to notice like it's quite dramatic when you start to take out the frequencies that are challenging. And this isn't just for Apex. This is equalizing in general. If you're gonna do like complex equalizations, this is kind of what you want to end up doing if you're going for like a specific type of frequency, like canceling shit out or whatever. Like if somebody asks you to clean up a track or something, like, oh, I want you to, you know, this is too much noise in the background. You're gonna do something similar to this, I would imagine. I mean, everybody has their own methods. Oh, that. I want to move this guy. I want to move your Q. I do not want it to sound bad. That's my main goal, and this is like I really hate that whole like wind tunnel fucking sound. It's just not. It's terrible. I've seen people try, you know, doing something like this, and it just ends up like destroying the mix in general. And we're not trying to destroy it. We're trying to complement it. What I should have been doing this whole time actually was boosting it to listen, but I am rushing. And you know what, I'm actually just going to end this with a, I don't even know what to call those, Ys. This just like flattens out your end. And I'm going to boost the high a little bit, because we cut the lows a little bit. No, that's not. I'm not going to boost the high. That's better. Some lows. The hell? Okay, that's an effect. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Oh, my channel's lame. Come subscribe. Come to my Twitch. And subscribe to my Twitch, if you like this anyway. That was really weird. I don't know. I think it's just like a processing thing. Oh. You know why? It's because I have this running at like 1080p source. Jesus Christ, my bandwidth is probably nuts. Okay. You'll see by the time that we're done here. This is going to be really, really beneficial for you if you're not using headphones. In fact, I think that this kind of configuration should be more often used. Anyway, I'm getting carried away here. I could just sit here for fucking a long time doing this, but moving on. Next thing you're going to want to do, and this is why I think this is actually kind of an important detail, that I think they could have probably had at least a little bit of gating. Or even compression. Basically, what we're gonna do next, I use a gate. I'm gonna try a compressor actually. Let's try it with a compressor. So threshold down. Give me that ammo. Let's give it a gun. You know, I don't like my equalizing. Oh, it sounds like I'm gonna fix this here. Okay, so I think Apex is just too loud right now. I don't think it's the game itself, but it might be. I'm just gonna turn that down. Okay, you know, I'm fine with this volume, and I want to continue. I want to move on. So next, we're gonna try this compressor. We're gonna compare the gate. We're gonna compare a gate and a compressor, and see what kind of differences we can get as far as ducking the audio. So the other problem I have with Apex Legends is audio mixing, mastering, all that stuff. Is just how fucking loud the bullets are constantly, right? And yeah, it's fine. You can argue that they cancel out the sound of footsteps, and you can argue that it's more realistic and it creates more tactical events and shit like that. But you know, personally for me, I live in a house. I don't live on a battlefield, so when I am shooting my gun, I don't want to wake up my neighbors. But I also can't have it too quiet because I can't hear the game. So I just feel like it's not balanced well. So I like to just balance it with a little bit of compression or ducking. I'll explain how these work as quickly and simply as I can. This is a glue compressor. This takes your audio signal. So basically, the threshold would be the line where it would cross. So imagine your audio signal, your volume, is running like through a gate, and when it's loud, when it becomes loud enough, when the audio signal gets loud enough, this little needle here starts to kick in and starts to duck the sound. It starts to duck the volume. So that's one function, and that's not what makes this a compressor. What makes this a compressor is the attack and release, the ratio at which you can duck it, and then make up for the volume that you've lost.
Hi. Hi, I'm Kate. I'm just going over the compressor talk that I'm talking about in the video. Just going through the whole thing, getting it ready to edit, and make it presentable and hopefully educational. And I wanted to clarify that when I'm saying that the compressors, the glue compressors that I'm using in the video, the multi-band compressor, it's not simply just cutting volumes out and then replacing it with more decibels, because that would kind of just not make sense, right? That would just mean it's like getting louder and quieter, basically. It wouldn't do anything, right? So like a compressor is actually balancing out the volume levels of a song, or of a song, anything really, anything you put into it. You know, it could be like there's just like a simple sound that has you know, a lot of varying you know, levels of decibel. So what a compressor will do for you is you throw your varied level of volume sound into your process it through your compressor, and then that will balance out the levels a lot more, which in turn will also decrease the dynamic range of the track in question, but in the process of doing so will likely create, for the most part, a much smoother listening experience depending on what you're going for, right? So when I use a compressor for something like ducking volumes, it is a really good tool for just how intuitive it works with this audio signal, with the sound signal. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that it's not just a tool to duck volumes and increase volumes. It's a much more useful artistic tool that you can use to your discretion, but be advised that you will take out the quality of the overall signal if you overcompress, add too much of a ratio. Do your math, because I don't do my math. I got to play it by ear, and it takes me 5 times as long to properly compress certain things. So yeah, this has been Jim.
Right. So it's really good to balance things out. So let's say 0 threshold. So we're not going to hear like the needle might move a little bit, but that's the threshold is 0 decibels, and 0 decibels is the decibel before you clip. So we're going to drop it down to 13, 14 decibels, and that would be right here. So as soon as the volume goes to here, it's going to start cutting out audio. And it's going to cut audio out at a ratio of 4 to 1, which is, it's going to be 4 times as strong as 1. So like, yeah, 2 to 1, needle goes up to 5, 4 to 1. Well, I mean, it should go up to 10. Or maybe, no, it doesn't change the needle, okay. But it changes the ducking. Unless I'm completely wrong. Not that significant of a difference, actually. Okay, 2. Okay, yeah. Now you can see the difference when we drop the threshold down to that, because it's going to be grabbing it constantly. Okay, so ducking, boom. And so the trick here is we don't want the sounds that are not as loud as gunshots to be caught, to be ducked, and that's it. That's all you got to do with this. Right. And so it's about that. Right? You can use makeup, but why? I don't know. The point is, I want it to be quieter. So, I mean, honestly, a glue compressor just seems like it's going to make the gating easier. But now we're going to try a gate and see what the difference is. So, boom, gate. Now, a gate is, if you use Discord, you'll be using a gate constantly. Basically, it's just going to cut out any audio that you don't want to hear. An automatic gate is something you should never use. You should always well, I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think that automatic gates that automatically detect levels are good at all. In fact, every time I'm on a fucking computer game, somebody who uses an automatic gate, I constantly hear them sniff and cough, and it's just it sucks. Not good. So we'll just bring our floor all the way up. We're not going to get any difference here, but if we bring our floor down there, it's like boom. Oh, flip this. Okay. So yeah, what we did that is flipped it. I'm not really good with opposites, and my brain kind of just does mental gymnastics, but there's a visual representation, and this drops the floor, and the floor is how much volume you're going to cut out when you flip it. Right? So when the volume is loud enough to hit this line, it will cut it out 11.3 decibels. Now, that sounds too dramatic for me. I want the punch of it. And it holds it. Let's get rid of the hole for a sec. And then I'm just gonna bring the release up. Okay, so what's happening there when it's going is that the sounds, the echo in the background and any other noises are just touching out of the region of this. Can I get out? No, I can't. I can sidechain it, but I don't see the point. This line here, right? So when it gets, you can see it kind of like the little white line there. So basically, oh, let's see what happens there. And it's just riding that line, right? What if we bring it there? What if we just bring like a really, like no release? Just yeah, doesn't sound natural. Yeah, I want it to sound natural again. Like I want it to complement. I want it to complement the sound design, not ruin it. The beauty of this, you can turn your speakers up and you won't have to wake up your fucking neighbors or your roommates or your parents. You can just turn your speakers up if you don't have headphones that sound good. Like if you like the sound of your speakers, I like the sound of my speakers personally. I'm quite fond of them. But I can't really use them because I just have to turn it up so loud often. Everybody's hearing's different. Me? This just sounds better to me. I like that it has a punch. I like that it hits, you know? It's less obnoxious. This is just my personal opinion, by the way. This isn't. And these are all really subtle changes that I find make the experience more enjoyable. Okay, now let's compare the glue compressor and the gate just for science reasons. I'm going to drop the threshold a little more on the compressor here. Dude, that sounds really natural to me. What about this one? I like the punch of this. I like how it, so we have a 26 millisecond attack. This one doesn't give you milliseconds. It gives you 130 milliseconds. So that should give us similar. But it ducks it less, so let's turn the ratio up to 10.
Making contact with enemy. Throwing arc star. Star out.
Threshold down a tad bit. A little more. Too much. I'm gonna reach you back down to 4. And whoop. 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 Yeah, that sounds better. That sounds more like what I'm going for. Let's try again with the gate. Sounds a lot better, I think, with the compressor. Maybe we can turn the attack up. Personally, I like the compressor. So I'm just gonna get rid of the gate. Anything? Okay, so the range is just giving me, I believe that would be the, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's just the range which it's allowing it to cut out. So if I bring like the range down to that, it shouldn't cut out at all. Exactly. Where was it before? That. Right, so now it's allowing it to cut out to a max of 9.11 decibels, which is perfectly fine. I don't want it to do it like that though. Sounds good. Okay. And then lastly, if you want to be a real freak, and this is extra curriculum, you're going to want to get a multi-band compressor. If you really want to drive those other levels, those other frequencies. What do I have? Multi-band compressor. I have the OTT, which is it's free, it's really cheap. Honestly, the multi-band compressor is actually pretty nice on Ableton, the stock one. Nobody's even commented. Is that boring? I'm just gonna use the multi-band compressor because I know it. The audio effect. Multi-band compressor. And then boom. 3 times the compression. More fun. Okay. For some reason, that always eats up my CPU. I'm gonna put it right before our yeah, so we're gonna have the glue compressor last in the chain, just so it does the ducking. Because if you have it before this, then this is gonna it's gonna mess up with our final audio ducking process, and it's going to reintroduce gains that we had already previously cut. Easy to think of it like water flowing down a river. Let's listen to these ones. Ain't that some shit? Ain't that some shit? That's the ambient. That's all those fucking ambient sounds. That's not even with the EQs and shit. Like, that's without the EQs. That's all the sounds going on in the background. That's a lot of noise. Do we need that much noise? Hell no. Let's give it the full range. Yeah, we don't really need to mess with the range. Okay, now high. That's about it, man. That's really about it. That's the only mixing I ever feel like doing in this game. Okay, so finally, we're gonna group all of these together. This is without. It's fucking loud. And this is with our effects added. Again. Without. It's just unrealistic if you're gonna have. And then added. Now, that will give you a much better hearing playthrough as far as spatial awareness goes, because that's all stereo. Your spatial awareness, as far as I'm concerned, is more just about stereo placement. You know, in the sense of where the hell is trying to tell you where this person is. It's just where that sound is going to be pushed. We're not messing with the stereo at all. The stereo is going to remain the same. The only thing we messed with is the volume, basically. You know, that's pretty much all we've done, is just change the volume. Yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say about this. I hope you find this useful, and if you like or found this informative, and you would like to hear more, please follow me on Twitch, follow me on YouTube, and check out my music. I've been doing it for a while, and I'd like to think that I'm getting better. I'm going to be trying to come out with an album pretty soon here. So, without further ado,